Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Environmental Protection Commission, Eric Jusen, who you are probably more used to seeing in this role. Because he's out of town and traveling, has asked me, the Vice Chairman of our Environmental Protection Commission of the town of Darien, to run the majority of tonight's meeting. So thank you all for being part of this regular meeting and the public hearings for tonight, Wednesday, February 2, 2022. And we, on our agenda, as many of you I'm sure have, you will see that there is, from an old business standpoint, there are no matters to discuss, but there are 3 under the new business headline. So let's get started with EPC number 01-2022 with reference to 25 Brookside Road. The applicant is R. Fawley, and the application is to construct a grade level patio, create a stabilized swale, install landscaping and other related features proximate to wetlands, water courses, and designated conservation easement areas. The property lies along the west side of Brookside Road, approximately 180 feet north of the Post Road, and is identified as map number 16, lot number 66, zone R-1/3, and it's on plus or minus 0.3866 acres.
Mr. Vice Chairman, these items have qualified for on the agenda this evening with respect to establishing a date of receipt and for the board's or the commission's determination if, in its opinion, based on your preliminary review of the information that was submitted to you last week, the public hearing is warranted on their application. So you have summarized the, what the basic application is here. If you have any preliminary thoughts as to the necessity of a hearing or not, please address them. And but more so, again, this is to establish the date of receipt for which we initiate the process to conduct our review.
Very good, Rick. Thank you for that introduction. And I believe I heard you say that a public hearing may be warranted for this good application.
We hold for a moment, please. I've got a problem here. I don't know what happened.
What was that?
If you could give me a moment, please. Okay. We're back on the record. I apologize. I had a problem with my equipment.
So
No problem.
in this particular instance, a public hearing is warranted. It is again, grade level patio. It gives the board the opportunity to express if you believe that it qualifies under the regulations where we have received a petition, which we have not, if they think it's a significant adverse impact or if it's in the public interest. In this particular instance, if you're asking for staff's opinion, I don't believe that it warrants the public hearing test because it is a grade level patio and it is some landscaping and some erosion control measures that are being applied.
Do any of my fellow commissioners, in the absence of Eric this evening, have any thoughts that they'd like to add to Rick Talamelli's introduction there?
It's Peter McGinnis. Rick, could you tell us whether you've heard on a preliminary basis from any neighbors at this point?
No, I can't tell you that the answer is no.
Okay.
This is Bill Wright. I do have some comments and maybe there are concerns, I'm not sure. So the patio doesn't seem to be an issue to me, but when I was over at the site, it seemed like that fence and the lawn were very close to the river. And I know they have a conservation easement there, but maybe because of the snow, I couldn't find the monuments. And on the plot plan that was, I guess it's a 2020 or 19 plot plan, there was no fence on it. There was a fence drawn in on the architectural landscape architects, but I don't know. There was no way to, unless I went out there with a tape, to validate if that fence and lawn is on the natural easement, unless they're allowed to do that, which would be a shame to allow a lawn on a conservation easement. So I bring that up to see if we can get to the bottom of that. And if it is the case that it is accurate, then I think minimally they should have some kind of a plant barrier going along the whole length of that river on the interior of the fence to make sure we get some fertilizing stoppage of when it sheets off with rain. That's a heck of a good wise river. It's a great natural resource, and we should, where we can, make stops to keep fertilizer from going in. So there's two items there that I would like to have addressed.
Thank you, Bill.
I
Anyone?
had a similar thought and I guess questions. And I just, in addition to what Bill said, I was wondering if they could clarify why river rocks would be preferred to plantings.
The issue is formal review of the application, but we'll certainly take those into consideration and do the research on the property. It is again, there's a history before the EPC and a history as part of a subdivision that the commission had instilled, and we'll do a comparison of what was approved, permitted, and for that reach of the river during the subdivision and prior EPC permits.
Anyone else? Carolyn, do you have any questions or thoughts?
I do. I actually had a similar question to Lauren's, at whether or not plantings had been considered instead of the river rocks. But I do have one other question. It's stated that no existing trees or shrubs on the property of any size will be removed. And I just always like to take the opportunity whenever a property comes before us to ask if there are any perhaps invasives, like any, euonymus or anything like that, that we could encourage the homeowner to remove at this time.
Okay.
Do you want me to answer that, Rick?
I think we can include it all at one time when we go out, and I will certainly incorporate it into our initial request for information. Next item.
Anybody else? Michael, I don't know if you have a question, but I think I see that you're on with us.
Good evening, everybody. No, I have no questions at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We heard from Peter. Lauren. Michael has no questions. Carolyn passed the thought, and as did Bill. Always good thoughts. With that, do we have enough here, Rick, to move forward with either a conditional approval for what the fall of the application is, or seek further discussion here?
Staff is just initiating its review, so there'll be questioned as to, looking at, make sure that we can secure the answers to these very preliminary questions, and any questions I might find or clarifications I need as I do my review over the coming months. There's no need for an action at this time.
And do we need a motion of any sort before we move to the next item on the agenda?
No.
All right, Rick, thank you for that. Thank you for all of your input, everyone. With that, you've certainly all been listening. Rick says we can now move to the next item on tonight's new business agenda, which is EPC number 02-2022, which concerns 33 Knollwood Lane. P. Michalowski and H. Michalowski, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, which application is to construct an in-ground pool, patio, fence, pool, we already know that, equipment and walls, implement grading, install landscaping and other related features in and proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the north side of Knollwood Lane, approximately 835 feet west of Mansfield Road, and is identified as map number 06, lot numbers 72, zone R-1, and is plus or minus 1.64 acres.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for the explanation of the application. Again, we are here this evening as to memorialize the receipt of the application and start the statutory time clock for the review
Thank you.
application and for the board's input as to the necessity of a public hearing on this matter.
Thank you, Rick, for your summary introduction. Do any of my fellow commissioners, again, in the absence of our chairman, have any initial thoughts from site visits or looking at the materials that have been circulated?
This is Michael Irvin. You know, based on the performance in Knollwood through the recent storms, I would recommend that we have a public hearing.
Thank you, Michael.
And the reasons being?
Well, Knollwood was substantially impacted by the storms. So I think it would be fair to the neighborhood to be aware of this type of development.
So you're saying potential for significant impact?
Correct.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else? Peter, would you have any views on this one, or you want to wait for Carolyn or Lauren or Bill?
I'm going to side towards a public hearing on this one for the same reasons Michael Irwin mentioned. I would also ask of Rick if we've heard from any neighbors at this point.
So I don't know who's speaking. Thank you.
I have not heard any neighbors in property.
I missed some of that. Rick, I missed some of that. It broke up slightly. Could you? I
We
think
have
that was.
not heard from any of adjoining.
Okay, thanks. You're breaking up slightly. That's why I asked you to repeat. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think this is a fairly, Cummings Brook is a fairly active brook. Is it a seasonal brook, or Rick, have you determined does the brook flow seasonally, or is this a continuous flow?
Okay, no, it is continual.
Yeah, it's pretty active if I understand it.
So we have a sense of the board if they're going to have a public hearing on this.
Two members who have raised their hands in that regard, Rick, and maybe that is Mr. Irvin and Commissioner McGinnis. Lauren, could we point the camera at you and ask thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not sure what the protocol has been. It occurred to me, however, that it's almost a half an acre. I think it's a little more than 0.4 acres of wetlands that will be disturbed. And to me, that could be considered significant. But again, I don't know if that's something we've considered in the past, having not been on the board for a long time. So I would lean in the direction of a public hearing, but you know, if we haven't treated similar cases like this in the past, then you know, being a significant amount of wetland that making it significant.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. Carolyn, any thoughts?
I too would lean toward a public hearing for some of the same reasons that were previously given. The fact that there are such a high degree of wetlands being disturbed, the amount of earthwork associated with the development, the retaining walls, the removal of mature and large trees. I think, you know, like Lauren, I don't have a lot of experience with what the protocol has been for calling for a public hearing, but I guess I basically feel that almost anytime wetlands are disturbed, there should be the opportunity for a hearing. So I would lean toward a hearing at this point.
Thank you, Carolyn. Bill Wright, I think we're seeing if you have a view on this one.
I agree. It should go toward public hearing. That's just transparency to the neighbors, just in case there's something we don't know, now they know about it. I always think that's a better way to proceed, give people a chance. The other item, you know, it's my stickler. I'd love to see that thing staked. It's a big hunk of area being developed. It's snow on the ground, you know, when you walk there, it's hard to get a perception. You've got a chart in your hand. Something like that should be staked on every application. The people want to, you know, their residents should see where it is too. You know, they know where it is in their minds, but everybody else walking through there shouldn't have to guess, especially if it goes to a public hearing and people want to go out there. So I would recommend it gets staked.
Real quick, we got it staked this morning. For anybody who wants to check it out, it was staked out this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Okay.
I couldn't tell
Thomas,
you. I'm sorry?
Thomas Nelson.
Yeah, Tom Nelson with McCord Engineering.
Tom, thank you for that. I think maybe it's my turn, and I clearly appreciate Commissioner Irvin's input and his knowledge of the recent storms that may have impacted this part of town. We live not far from there, and there was some water around, and Peter's support for that, and both Lauren and Carolyn's. Bill Wright, I want to give a shout out to, has always, and in every meeting I've been part of with him in the past 36 months, says, and maybe this is a message to you, Rick, if there's a proposal like this, let's make it a condition or a requirement or whatever the word is not to be you know, a out over your skis vice chairman, but we should just stake everything. It'll save time and help everybody to make their decision. And I think if I've heard the voices on our commission so far on this one, Rick, I think we're heading to a public hearing on this, and I can support, for good reasons already mentioned, why we should do so.
Would you like to make a motion and vote on it and just say you've acknowledged receipt and you would, so we have a clear indication of who wants to do it? Sure. Somebody should do it.
Sure, I'm happy to ask for.
And state on the reasons.
Rick, thank you for that clarification procedurally. I'm usually in a different chair with Eric and yourself helping guide everything, so I'm kind of feeling my way here. And I'm happy to ask for a motion to take the application for EPC number 02-2022 for 33 Knollwood Lane here in Darien, and ask that it be submitted to a public hearing. And I need someone to make a motion and a second, and then we'll follow Eric's guidance, where if we have no motions, we'll presume it is supported unanimously. Carolyn, perhaps you'd like us to make that motion?
Sure. I'll make the motion. Do you want me to repeat it or just say as you delineated the motion in your statement?
I think unless Rick has better thoughts, I think your idea is fine. Rick?
Okay, great. So I make the motion.
Thank you so much. Can we have a second?
I
On this matter,
second the motion. I second the motion. Peter McGinnis.
Peter, thank you so much for that. And unless we have anyone that raises a storm, I think that carries unanimously, Rick, and we're looking to revisit this application or discuss it once again in a public hearing in early March of this year. Is it time then to move to the next item on the agenda, Rick? Which is EPC number 03-2022 in regards to 552 Hoyt Street. It's the Woodway Country Club Incorporated, and the application is to construct a raised landing, renovate a driveway, grade and implement other related improvements proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The work is in association with a proposal to raise and structurally flood-proof an existing single-family dwelling and associated features. The property lies along the west side of Hoyt Street, approximately 835 feet south of Barringer Road, and is identified as map number 03-lot number 145 in zone R-2 and is plus or minus 0.8425 acres. And that one is up for discussion.
Thank you for the Vice Chairman. Thank you for the
Thank you,
introduction.
Rick.
Similar to the last two applications, we are here this evening to establish the receipt date or acceptance date of the application that is necessary to structure the review over the next 65 days or so, and in a determination as to the necessity of a hearing, either for any of the reasons that are stated in the regulations from which you have a public hearing, public interest, significant impact, or petition. I can report there's been no petition. We have not received any interest in the application to date. And again, the project is to raise, not demolish, but elevate and make structurally flood-proof a dwelling, existing single-family dwelling. And as a result of doing this, there's necessity of gaining access to the elevated structure. Again, have a motion if the board thinks that a public hearing is necessary. Our regular review, which I initiated today.
Rick, thank you for that summary. I was out there myself, not today, but yesterday. I know that Woodway has come before us on a number of occasions, before us as a commission. And I myself have no issues with what they're proposing and don't see this one being elevated to the level of a public hearing. I think they tend to do things for the betterment of their property, naturally, and do them within the guidelines that we always look to preserve and insist on. So that was my own take, and I'm happy to listen to any of our other fellow commissioners that are part of tonight's meeting.
Jim, this is Michael. I concur with you.
Thank you, Michael.
I didn't hear what you said, Michael.
Concurs.
And Mike, may I just on a question? So if I understand the application, it's not to disturb any of the soil, it's to substantially to raise the structure. Is that the proposal here?
I believe so. Was that a question for Michael, Peter,
Or for Rick?
or for Rick? Okay, thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
If I understand the application, it's not to significantly disturb soil or wetland area, but rather to raise the structure as substantially stated in the application.
To raise, to elevate the structure, and the necessity of disturbing some soil in order to create platforms to gain entry.
And only incidental to the raising of the structure, as I understand. So I will agree with Vice Chairman Millard that a public hearing might not be necessitated.
Do we have anybody else, Carolyn or Lauren, perhaps, that has a view on? Certainly, we're not going to leave you out, Bill White, that on this application for Woodway at Holt Street.
Yeah, this is Lauren Rossi. I agree, as long as proper implementation of the site development and erosion control plans are properly, implemented and followed. I think I support them getting in compliance with the FEMA floodplain requirements and moving forward with the process. And I don't think a public hearing is necessary.
Thank you, Lauren. Bill, are you still with us? Any thoughts that you want to share?
I agree with everything she just said. Yep.
This is Carolyn. I also, I concur with the other commissioners.
Thank you. Rick, what does that leave us with procedurally? Do we need a motion on anything here for Woodway's work they want to do on Hoyt Street?
Well, why don't we do it as a motion to vote that we've accepted the application and it's been determined that a public hearing is not necessary for the review of this particular application. Just so we have a clear indication and everybody is documented, everybody is in agreement.
Excellent thought, Rick. Thanks. And Bonnie, this is all recorded. That's on the record, so we can let's ask Carolyn or Lauren perhaps to make that motion to approve EPC number 03-2022 as outlined by Rick just then.
To accept the application and to make a motion to waive the public hearing in this instance.
Thank you, Council. You're going to be in the Vice Chairman's role here soon.
No, thank you, but you're doing well.
I second the motion.
Thank you all. And I believe it's right, Rick, to say if no one has any other thoughts, it passes unanimously for the record of the commissioners in attendance tonight. Thank you all. Peter, thank you.
You're welcome.
The record, could we just, who made the motion?
Peter.
Peter? And seconded?
I seconded it.
Exactly. That's great. Thank you. You okay, Rick, if we move on to the next bit of business on our agenda?
Yes.
Which takes us to the public hearings. We have two on this February 2nd, 2022 agenda for public hearings. This one is an application labeled EPC number 41-2021. It's in respect to 31 Birch Road, D. Gabriel and L. Gabriel. The application is to construct an in-ground pool, fence, equipment, patio, and other related features within a designated upland review area. The property lies along the west side of Birch Road, approximately 500 feet south of Point of Woods Road, and is identified as map number 11, lot number 3, zone R-1/2, 1/2, and plus or minus 0.29 acres.
So, Mr. Vice Chairman, you've officially opened the public hearing. I just wanted to provide some information that's pertinent to the record.
Thank you.
The application was submitted in December 12/16/2021, but received by the commission at the January 5th meeting. At that meeting, the commission determined that a public hearing was warranted based on a determination that it would be in the public interest. There had been a staff level request for additional information that was developed on January 6th, 2022. The applicant been written by certified mail returned the application and outlining the notice requirements on January 10th, 2022. The EPC, per the regulations, published of this twice on January 20th and January 27th. Notice per the applicant was submitted to the abutters on January 21st. But our review of that submittal, that this particular applicant neglected to notice two persons that fell within 100 feet of the property. We sent the agenda to the town clerk on 1/27 and started recommending, again, this hearing has been open, that we entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to March 2nd, 2022, which is the next meeting, to allow for the notice, correction, and republication and other hearing preparations. And that advice has been provided to us as well by the council for the town of Darien.
Rick, I think working with this commission and professionals like yourself is a very rewarding time. And I certainly agree that that is where we should go as a commission, to allow notices by an applicant, receipt of notices by neighbors that are critical to the decision, opportunities for voicing their views at public hearings, and all of the above. Sorry to be so long-winded, but I think Rick is moving us in the direction of keeping the public hearing open, extending it into early March at our next meeting, which I think you said was March 2 or 3. We'll look at our calendars and we'll visit it then.
So I would do it as a motion. If you would like, motion to, we've opened the continue the public hearing to the next meeting on March 2nd, as the means to move forward with the review and allow for appropriate notice and postings and meeting preparation.
Excellent. Thanks, Rick, for that. And if, for the record, Bonnie, if that description by our Environmental Protection Commission officer suffices, if we could ask Carolyn or Lauren to make that motion in accordance with his description, we can then move to the next item. Carolyn?
Sure. I will make the motion to keep the public hearing open until March as described by Rick for EPC number 41-2021, 31 Birch Road.
Excellent, much appreciated. Can we have a second
I'll
for that?
second. This is Lauren Rossi. I'll second the motion.
Much thanks, Lauren. And like we've been doing with our go-to meetings over the past year or so, and under Eric's direction, if we have nobody raising a hand against this, we will describe it as unanimously approved and move to the next item on tonight's agenda. Thank you all. Thank you all for that. Rick, thanks for that description. The next item on our agenda for tonight is also a public hearing. It is EPC number 42-2021. It is with respect to 175 Brookside Road under the auspices of 175 Brookside LLC. The application is to grade and construct a driveway, parking court, drainage, and related features within a designated upland review area. These activities are linked to single-family dwellings associated with a pending two-lot subdivision of this property. The parcel lies along the west side of Brookside Road, just north of Stonewall Lane, and is identified as map number 05, lot number 13, zone R-2, and is plus or minus 4.5387 acres. And it's appropriate at this time for me to let you all know that as a nearby and adjacent property owner, I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion around this application. And Bill Wright has agreed, thankfully, Bill, to step in and direct the discussions around this good application by this applicant. I'll be back to you when this is over for the end of the meeting kind of pieces on our agenda for tonight.
Okay. Before we start in and ask the applicant to put their presentation out, Rick, did you want to add anything else prior to starting?
Yes, I'd just like to add a few things to the record or clarify some submittals to the record. Please note that the application was submitted on December 21st, 2020. It was formally received and initiated the starting date of the review at the 1/5/2022 meeting. At that time, the commission determined that a public hearing was warranted based upon a determination of the review would be in the public interest and the potential for significant impact. There had been a staff request for additional information on January 6th of 2022, correspondence confirming receipt and the necessity of the public hearing and notice requirements was submitted to the applicant on 1/10/2022. The applicant, we acknowledge the receipt of the notice to the abutters within 100 feet of this property, which had been stamped by the U.S. Postal Service on January 18th, 2022. The EPC published notice of this hearing twice in accordance with the regulations on 1/20/22 and 1/27/22. And the addenda was forwarded to the town clerk on 27/22, and that receipt has been acknowledged. The application itself again, is linked to a pending two-lot subdivision on this 4.5 acre piece of property. Many of the members have made it out to the site and have reviewed the conditions. The agency staff had compiled a list of information based on their own observations, as well as the observations of several of the abutters, but also on members as they've reviewed the site and the information that was provided in support of the applications. If you recall, the property is on the west side of Brookside Drive, a high point in the approximate center of the site, defined as uplands. There are areas of wetland to the east of that high point in the center, so more along parallel to the Brookside Road. It not only is an open channel, there's a farmer's drain, and then there's a pipe, but there is two. For the sake of argument, it could be one wetland hydraulically connected to each other that had been identified in the space, and that area had been generally maintained as landscaped or manicured lawn for some number of years. This site previously supported a large single-family dwelling and many attendant features, including sports courts and detached garage and pools and other things on the property. To the extreme west, there is, and just offsite the property, there's a small wooded wetland corridor that, although not on this property, the upland review area extends onto this property. So the board is tasked, and the applicant is actually tasked of demonstrating that the site can be developed with 2 homes with reasonable yard space and all the intended facilities, those facilities that are necessary to support the dwelling, including a septic system, drainage that attenuates potential impact, show that it is zoning compliant in terms of setbacks, et cetera, that they have, potable water supply, utilities, those kinds of things. And much of the work that you've seen on the plans that have been presented to you were in support of those applications. The property to the extreme west is shown to all its activities being kept outside of the regulated areas, including walls, grading. There are some encroachments with grading and drainage and driveways. And we are again looking at the potential on resources in regulated areas. I just want to make the board's attention that we have seen at least 2 separate occasions.
Rick, you're cutting out, Rick.
You might want to see that the board's attention that the commission has seen projects on this property, a subdivision, on at least 2 separate occasions, and then there had been a modification of 2 separate occasions that gained the endorsement of this commission, and then a modification that provided for the installation of a pipe. Again, there is information to ensure that the project not only could proceed, but would have an acceptable impact on regulated areas and drainage. There will be testimony tonight, and there'll be a presentation going over all those elements, I'm sure. It'll be noted that with the development of the properties itself, there's been a drainage systems for each lot that have been proposed that attenuate stormwater impacts up to the 50-year storm. There have been test holes done in the vicinity of the septic systems to demonstrate the feasibility of systems up to to support perhaps a 6-bedroom dwelling. There will be water brought into the site and utilities brought into the site. Test holes have been built in the vicinity of the dwellings to establish groundwater in the vicinity of the basements, and the specialized groundwater control devices are necessary. The potential impacts on regulated areas. All these things will be part of the presentation that we made by the applicant tonight. Focusing two areas that I'd like to bring special attention to. We have received, as an aside, all this information was the request for information was summarized in a staff letter that was dated 1/6/2022. But some of the things that they're kind of focused attention on as a conversation moving forward tonight is there had been consideration of drainage effects associated with the farmer's drain, the pipe that had been permitted by this agency, through portions of the wetland, and the potential for impacts on drainage and adjoining properties. Also was raised about the maintenance of those structures and features, and again, how that impacts the regulated areas and adjoining properties. The other area that we should focus our attention on too tonight is the value of the project's mitigative measures. What's the impact of the project on the regulated areas? Is there mitigation that's being proposed to offset the impact of those activities to not only better protect the regulated areas, but also to look to enhance the regulated areas? Some preliminary plans have been submitted. As we move forward in the review, I can offer some comments on those, and also what staff's opinion is as to what would be perhaps a more response on this application. And lastly, another area of focus is staff has requested a review of essentially the tree resources on the property. For the subdivision regulations, it is value trees of value should be shown, and the activity should be adjusted to preserve trees of value. I must say that the applicant has provided an arborist report and some adjustments to the report and our plans may be necessary based on that report. And I can go into it further, but I think it's a good time to allow the applicant and their consultants to provide their presentation. You have your questions, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have as we move forward tonight.
Is Robert Maslin, are you going to be the applicant presenter, I assume?
Yes.
It's all
I'm sorry, we have this large environmental protection, all of there's been little tiny pictures there. I can't see who's talking. Can we take that off? Do you have
The people present here, and so they can't. I can tell you who's talking because I know that's spelled right, but you don't.
I can't.
You should be able to see the list of people as
You know
part of your.
is when people speak, could you identify yourself before you speak?
Oh, sure. Like we used.
I can't see who's speaking, and I'm trying to write and look at the screen at the same time, and that's not working. So whoever was speaking, if you could identify yourself, please.
Welcome back. Welcome to the world of technology here in 2022. My name is Robert Maslin, and I'm the attorney, and Bonnie knows who I am.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, everybody on the call, that was Bonnie who was speaking. Yeah, she forgot, she neglected to say her name.
Eric joined the meeting at
Eric's here?
49.
Yep.
Bill
Yeah.
Wright has an excellent improvisation of Eric Yosten.
Hey, I don't mind turning it back to Eric. You want to take it, Eric? Go for it.
Okay, Bill, if you want, that's fine.
Robert,
Go.
you're representing the applicant. You want to go?
Yes, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm attorney Robert Maslin and I represent the applicant, 175 Brookside LLC. The applicant recently purchased the property and would like to divide it into 2 buildable lots. Because there are wetlands on the site, we're required to make our presentation here and obtain a report from the commission to the Planning and Zoning Commission for due consideration when we present our subdivision plan to them. On the call or on the meeting tonight here are Tom Tamburino, who is the principal of 175 Brookside, Doug DeVesta, civil engineer on the site, James McManus, soil and wetland scientist, Matt Pop, landscape architect, and myself. And Bonnie, you'll see these names all printed out and spelled for you, just like before. As I mentioned, and Mr. Chairman, whichever one is chairing the meeting, my plan is to go through a PowerPoint as I've been doing with these online meetings. And at each point where one of our team members would be more appropriate to speak, I'll just turn the microphone over and we'll work off the slides. And I know Joe Canis is here, who is the commission's peer reviewer, and there's been some back and forth with Joe and back and forth with Rick Talamelli on the plan and on modifications and such. And we've been making modifications even up through today. I understand that you're not going to close the hearing tonight, or probably not going to close it, because we still have some revisions that we're submitting and all of that, unless we somehow manage to close tonight. So anyway, the overview is this is really a 2-part process. Part 1 is to get the report, as I mentioned, from the Wetland Commission to the Planning and Zoning Commission under the statute. The second aspect of this is basically an application for a license to conduct regulated activities within the upland review areas. For the most part, they are not very significant activities, and they're not very significant encroachments into upland review areas. There's a whole section of slides I have here about the farmer's drain that seems to be a topic of interest for many people, and that's toward the end of the presentation. The activities that we're talking about are minor landscape features involving some minimal regrading and a new retaining wall possibly within the review area on the western lot. This has been pulled back so that the wall itself is no longer in the upland review area. They've already demolished the existing residence, and we're putting in 2 new stormwater management systems, 1 for each lot. They're both self-contained, and new subsurface septic systems, and those also are either completely outside or just on the fringe of one of the upland review areas. There's no inland wetland or watercourses located on the pros. This should say western lot, lot number 1. And as I lost my thing. Oh, here we go. As Rick mentioned, there is a wetland system off to the west, but it's off-site. So I have some aerial photographs, and I thought I would make a kind of a wider area on this one, just because of the nature of what's going on. The site itself is here, just below the center of the page. There's Stonewall Lane is off down here to the south. Brookside Road runs up and down through pretty much the middle. And we have a property here at 191 Brookside with a driveway, a property that's back here that's 193 Brookside that has a long driveway that it's a flag lot basically out to Brookside. A third property at 205 Brookside with another driveway. And north of that is an open space area that was related to a subdivision that was probably done about 15, 20 years ago, 3 lots in a row as you head up toward the north. This map is a little closer in, but I wanted you to see the wetland systems that are mapped on the town's GIS system. We have starting at the bottom on this site, and they're more specifically mapped on the survey and the site plan. But we have 2 wetland areas down here. On the eastern part of the site, there's a wetland system off to the west with a water course going through it. We don't know how accurate that is. There's a house in the middle here. Looks like most of 193 Brookside is mapped as wetland, and then you have this fine, well-defined sharp line here. So I'm not sure about the accuracy here. And that same wetland area seems to extend a little bit onto 191. But the main system continues up on the eastern side of these properties, up to the north, across the front yard of 191. There's a break for the driveway for 193, and then you continue up further, and there's another wetland area, and you have these little dark blue lines which represent some form of water course. So that's kind of the lay of the area. And then the site itself, I have the 2019 aerial photograph here from the GIS, town's GIS system. And of note here is this was taken in 2019. And for those of you who were on the commission back in 2018, 2019, you may recall that the commission approved a 2-lot subdivision and approved activities in upland review areas. I believe it was done without a public hearing. And one of the concerns was to make sure that a pipe located south of the driveway would be open and functioning, and an old farmer's drain from the driveway heading north, which is this very straight, lighter colored line, would be cleaned out, updated, or whatever, so that this becomes more functional. After that approval, the then applicant came back and requested approval to replace most of this pipe because they videoed it and found that it had collapsed somewhere along in here. So they just replaced this whole portion of it. And that caused this to open up and flow quite well. The prior applicant, just to put a little bit of a context to this, because you got to wonder why this was done, but they didn't proceed with their project. The prior owner was a contract purchaser at the time, and apparently was eager to get going on the project and started work, but the principal of the entity became sidetracked with a few other personal matters and abandoned this project. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. And that's why this pipe was done, but nothing else beside the pipe and the farmer's drain work was done back then. Subdivision map. This is basically the map. The next slide is going to be the site plan, and I'll let Doug DeVesta talk about that. But we're talking about, and follow the red dot, a common boundary right along here, runs a little bit to the, not quite a 90-degree turn to the east, and then another little bend in it here, and then close to a 90-degree turn up to the north. So you have one lot back to the west, lot 1. It will have a new house on it with a new driveway in from Stonewall Lane. Lot 2 is the eastern of the 2 lots. This will get a new house And this zoning location survey / subdivision map shows a modification from the original plan that was the result of Rick Talamelli's comments to us. The off-site wetland area is shown by flagging just off to the west here with an upland review area delineated on this map. The wetland system to the east or on the eastern portion is delineated here with wetland flags. And there's an area here of upland. And on the south side of the driveway, a smaller inland wetland area as well. The farmer's drain is shown by this pretty close to a straight line, and then it converts into a pipe. And this pipe ends up in a catch basin right here in Stonewall. This catch basin is connected to a catch basin directly across the street, and this heads downstream into an open water course as you head south. Doug, you want to talk about your site plan? And I can blow this up a little bit if you'd like. Doug? Yep, turn your microphone on.
There you go.
Nothing. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Doug DeVesta, a professional engineer, represent the applicant. As Bob mentioned, the 2-lot subdivision. We'll start on the westerly lot. That has the heavy red line is the upland review area for the wetlands that are off-site. We are proposing a driveway coming off of Stonewall Lane to service the house. We provided did field investigation for soil testing and determined that a 6-bedroom septic system is feasible for the property. That was reviewed by the health department for both lots and approved on January 5th, 2022, which is located in the rear part of the lot itself. We're proposing a stormwater management system consisting of Coltech units located in the south and west corner of the property. That will collect the runoff from the patio around the pool area and 2 catch basins in the driveway and the roof areas. And that's been designed and proven that we can handle the storms from a 2, 10, 25, and 50-year design storm and show a 0 increase in runoff for all storms required. We are providing 2 small wing walls off the west end of the house, and then a small wall along the northwest side of the house, the property, to keep the grading, minimize the grading going towards the upland review area. And then we provided some grading along between the wing walls back up towards the house there to eliminate the height of the walls as well, to address a couple of comments, one from Rick and one from Joe. So that's really, and then what we're proposing is silk fence along the down gradient side of any of the cuts. And it was requested that we show a double row silk fence, which we are providing along the westerly portion of the site for the control the erosion potential from the site, from that portion of the property. Going to the easterly lot, as that one we talked about has a big wetlands corridor going through it from north to south. We're going to maintain we're keeping the same curb cut and the same driveway coming in from Brookside to about 35 feet from the head wall, creating a circular courtyard. Then they could branch off to the north and go into the garage on the north side of the house. We are providing a pool location, a patio. Septic system is located parallel to Stonewall Lane. Again, that was reviewed and approved for 6 bedrooms. Feasibility was approved by the health department on January 6th letter, or excuse me, January 5th, 2022. That is 6-bedroom system, septic system can be feasible for the property itself. We are providing a stormwater management system to collect the runoff from the new portion of the driveway up to the beginning of the circular driveway and the lay going up towards the house, the patio areas and the roof areas to a detention system located east of the house, partly in the upland review area, and that was designed and can control the 2, 5, 10, and 25, 2, 10, 25, and 50-year design storms. We also, again, provided double row silt fence along the cuts, the down gradient cut areas or fill areas by the drainage system and by the easterly side, or the northeasterly side of the infiltration bed for the footing drain water. One of the questions that came up last time was how we handling the footing drain water. We are providing a external sump pump and then providing an infiltration bed to handle the runoff coming from the footing drains itself. And you want me to continue on, Bob, and talk about the staff review and Joe Kennis's review comments now, or you want to wait?
Well, on the engineering, I think this would be a good point to talk about Joe's comments and Rick's, and then the commission might want to have Joe jump in after that, and then we can
Okay.
with the rest of it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is going to go through Rick Calamelli's staff report that was dated January 6th. Go through it point by point, if that's okay with everybody, unless you have seen it already. The first comment was the impacts of the SS&E controls out there. The house was raised prior to this application being submitted. We did an inspection on 1/13/22, and it appears the silt fence on lot 2, which is the easterly lot, was in good condition. Anti-tracking pad was installed at the end of the paved drive of the existing driveway that's going out towards Brookside. That appears to be in good condition. The silt fence on lot 1, the westerly lot, needed to be towed in. So that was that should have been done by now, and other than that, it was in good working conditions. Really wasn't much disturbance out there. Any of the stockpile areas were well away from the upland review area. The next question was regarding the installation of the replacement pipe from Stonewall Lane up to the north side of the head wall on the easterly lot. That was located by what they can see by the land surveyors and put it on a map. I believe that was submitted to staff, and we provided a letter stating that it was installed basically in conformance with our plan and our sketch that we got approved back in 2019 from this commission, and that the farmer's drain was repaired to a point that allows the water to continue to flow. There was, back in 2018, when we came through application-wise, the farmer's drain, a lot of the rocks on top of the drain were dislodged and fallen into the farmer's drain, which is causing water to back up and wasn't flowing freely. And based on what I've seen, videos, recent videos, and looked at the farmer's drain and the pipe itself, it looks like it's flowing. In my opinion, it's flowing properly, and the farmer's drain seems to be working properly. Then the next question Rick brought up was the maintenance of the drainage systems. We did provide a updated drainage maintenance in our report, which was submitted to the staff for review. There's a 4-inch pipe located on the north side of the driveway crossing that goes into the plunge pool. They want that located, and what was the purpose of that 4-inch drain? That was located by the surveyor, and it appears that was installed by a previous homeowner. Don't know really what was for, but I would assume it's some kind of a curtain drain, and it appears to be functioning. It doesn't appear to be functioning at the time of my inspection on 1/13/2022. The next question Rick brought up is about the top and bottom elevations of the walls. Bob, you want to point to those elevations over there? We did provide. You want me to be the presenter, Bob? And I can walk it through easier.
If you have a copy of this, I think they have to turn the whole thing over to you.
Yeah.
Do that, Fred?
Doug, I just made you a presenter. I have you listed twice though, so tell me if it doesn't work for you.
Okay.
Talking.
That was Elisa. She's the meeting moderator.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I am this one right here. I'm not sorry, no, this one here. This one is my computer.
What, the one you're talking on?
No, the other one. There we go. I got it.
All right, you're in.
Okay. Okay, there's the screen. Okay, so this is the same. This is the same slide that Bob had up there. Okay, so what Rick had asked us to do
Excuse me,
was to
Doug.
provide. Pardon me?
Excuse me, Doug. This is Eric Gilson. It was very nice that Bob was able to blow it up, so it filled up my screen and I was able to see some of the details. That's great.
Oh, yeah. I can blow it up too here.
Yeah, he's
Yeah, if
blowing
you
up
could do the
that.
same, I'd appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. No problem. So Rick had asked us to show the top and bottoms of the walls. So we show the tops and bottoms of the walls along this northwest side of the property and along the wing walls on both sides here. They're only, about a foot to 2 feet. Top is maybe 3 feet up in this area in here. Rick also asked us for the perimeter location of the pool fence, which we show here and we show here. The pool equipment located there, located over here. The next one he asked about, another question he asked about, propane tanks, generators, air conditioning units. So propane tank on lot 1, generator pad, air conditioning units here. And then on lot number 2, generator pad, propane tank, AC units, and AC units back over here. They also talked about the surface of the driveway. What we saw last meeting, we had a square courtyard. We changed that to a circle, and with the inner circle will be a paver stone, pervious paver stone with gravel underneath that to collect some of the runoff from the driveway, as well as the catch basins in the driveway itself. The water quality, number 9. I'll refer that back to those. Basically, I'll address those in Joe Canis's, the peer review of those comments. They're mostly talk about drainage and water quality, things of that nature. Further discussion, the alternatives. So the alternatives we proposed were what was considered back in 2018. That was one of our alternatives that was approved by this commission. Another alternative we had before you was, again, converting this circular drive. We had a rectangle or square parking court. We converted that into a circular courtyard with a paver stone, pervious paver stone inset in that. So again, those are our alternatives. And the third alternative is what we were proposing right now, is what we're looking for this commission to approve. Item number 11, I'm going to, which talks more about the environmental, the wetlands mitigations and things like that. I'm going to pass on those and let Matt Pop and Jim McManus talk about those once their turn to do the presentation. And then number okay, number 12. Rick was asking about doing soil testing within the foundations of the buildings, the 2 houses, determine groundwater levels, and then provide some type of infiltration system for the footing drains. And we did provide a test hole within the footprint of the house on lot number 2 and within the footprint of lot number 1. And then we're providing test holes within the infiltration system for the sump pump water and the roof runoff on both of the detention systems for lots 1 and 2. And then he asked us to provide some clarifications on the signature for the application, which I believe was done, and also provide a full date of the drainage summary report, which we did provide. So I'd like to go now into Joe Canis's comments. We received a report from Joe Canis, dated, it was to Jeremy Ginsburg, dated January 26, 2022. And we provided written response and revised site plans referring back to the to address the comments that Joe brought up. First comment Joe talked about was the keeping the existing driveway. This is the existing driveway here. Reusing the existing driveway, and per the zoning regulations, supposed to look at it as a fresh meadow. But in our opinion, that we kept this in pre-development conditions as well as post-development conditions. The reason for what we did that for was because there's got mature trees through this, lining this driveway. There's wetlands in this area. So if we were to come in here and do any kind of work in here, there's potential of causing problems to the tree structures, tree roots in the area, and also creating more disturbance within the wetlands this area ourselves. So by doing that, we felt that it was more beneficial to leave it as existing and not having disturbance. And there was really no material difference in the runoff. It runs off now, and we looked at it in pre and post development conditions. So it's basically a wash in both the pre and post development conditions. The second comment Joe talked about was using the hydrological soil group D. Soil D has a higher higher rate of runoff. And basically looking at the soils maps that we use, the web soil maps, there's a distinct line where the D soils and the C soils are. The C soils are on the property and D soils are off the property. So basically, if you look at the soils map, you can almost see where the line is. That's almost right where our property line is. So we utilize the C soil group for our calculations versus the D soils, what Joe was talking about, which are off-site here. But we did use the D soils for the wetlands on our property itself. The item number 3, the farmer's drain conveying flow from upstream. You want to do some investigation on that. And our response was, we saw, Joe talked about some photos that he's seen from adjoining neighbors. And then there was one picture in there from the 12-19 photos that Joe received, that there was vertical bars located in the new pipe that was installed under the driveway. That was actually, it was working because it held back any debris from going down into the drain line itself. But since that photograph was taken, those vertical bars have been removed. So there's no blockage of any kind of debris that's in there, and the pipe is running, flowing freely through the pipe and down towards Stonewall Lane. And also, I've seen pictures of the farmer's drain. The flow has overtopped the drain itself on a larger storm, but the pipe underneath the driveway continues to flow freely and not causing any backup on our property from the storms. Joe asked about a pre and post development water condition maps. We did provide those to him, so that was provided. Joe asked about the infiltration. Let's see, number 5. We provided calculations for the sump pump discharge we talked about, which would be an infiltration system here, and that's for the external sump pump on lot number 2. And then we provided a drainage system for the sump pump, gravity fed, on the house on lot number 1, which is above the groundwater based on our soil testing. And we did provide soil testing, and that is on our plans. Then number 6, it is a 18-inch corrugated plastic pipe. It was a 12-inch under the driveway, and it increases in size to 18 from the south side of the driveway to the catch basin in Stonewall Lane. There was, when this was done back in 2019, they put a camera up the catch basin about 40 feet. That's where the camera had stopped. They determined that there was broken pipe and roots in there that was causing the blockage. So from the about 40 feet to the catch basin was existing pipe, and then we just tied in the 18-inch corrugated plastic pipe into the 18-inch RCP. So therefore, we're not really changing anything. We're not really having any sharp bends in there. And it's a continuation of what was out there previously. Okay, and then we modified our report. Number 7, we modified our report and made everything consistent with 18-inch corrugated plastic pipe, which was replaced. We have a note on the plan that the existing driveway will be repaved. The existing asphalt will be taken off, recompacted, and then repaved. So be consistent pavement throughout the proposed driveway. The 4-inch pipe on the north side we talked about, which is right in here. We talked about that earlier, that it's, we assume it was the drain was done by a previous owner and it wasn't functioning at the time of our inspections. The comments was, we had a comment from Rick's January 6th letter about no basin to basin here, to avoid basin to basin connection, meaning going from, excuse me, meaning going from catch basin to catch basin and out. We had originally looking at taking a pipe from this catch basin on the north, going directly into the junction box, and then widen in the catch basin, bring it offline. But then Joe asked about, having a blind wide connection on lot number 2 and lot number 1. We brought it back to catch basin and over. It's standard engineering practice to go basin to basin. That's what we've been doing for 30 some odd years. I've been designing roads and catch basins and drainage systems. So we kept it that way. In our professional opinion, that avoiding basin to basin connection is more for a town or city road where you find more debris, more sediment coming into those catch basins. But for a single family residence and with a manicured property as these will be, very small amount of sediment will be getting in here. So we feel, it's our opinion, that with a sump and basin to basin connection and going into another junction box with another sump in here, that is to be sufficient to handle any kind of sediment that may be getting into it. Let's see now, we're up to number 11. We provided calculations to Joe that the drainage systems will drain within 72 hours. 12, we provided as we talked about earlier, we provided an updated operation and maintenance plan for the drainage, and including the farmer's drain and the culvert going underneath the driveway. 13, we revised our details to be consistent with our drainage calculations, and then 14, we revised our details to be consistent with the other requirements or with the plans itself. Let's see now, number 15. He was unclear about where we got our detention systems. Anything below the invert out of our drainage systems is our water quality volumes for both systems. Joe was unclear where we got the numbers from, and that came from our HydroCAD calculations. I provided that information to Joe. And same thing, number 16, just more of a coordination of our plans, things of that nature. 17, we provided We demonstrated that the footing drain water and the cross culvert and the culvert from the drainage system will not interfere with each other. So we're one's above the other. We provided a level spreader at the end of the detention system. We had just had a splash pad at that point there. Retaining wall drainage systems will be just a drain along the back of the wall and just discharge onto the ground. We anticipate not much water coming out of those drains, but we will provide some kind of drains there. And then we provided we corrected the elevations on the plan to demonstrate that there is a pitch from the control outlet to the level spreader on lot number 2 there. There was one question, okay, item B, which is erosion control. Will erosion control on the farmer's drain be repaired? I'm not really sure where the erosion is on this. Yes, there is some grass that was flattened out from rainstorms, and anything up in this area north of our property. Excuse me. North of the property here, I did not see any kind of erosion going on, so we're not really sure where that erosion is. As we talked about earlier, double row silt fence below, next to the wetlands area on the easterly lot, and also along the westerly lot itself. He also talked about some kind of doing a dewatering pit for the excavation for lot number 2. We are providing a silk sack, which is basically a pillow where the sump pump water or the dewatering device will go into, and then allow the sediment to settle it out into this bag and then be drained off site. Excuse me. And then letter C, we missed the label on the 154 contour and the 153 contour, which is right at the catch basin itself. And number 2, so he's asking about the farmer's drains, so the work is being occurred in the wetlands, what temporary disturbance area. We really not going to do any work at the open portion of the channel of the farmer's drain up that way, so really no erosion occurring in that area. And then any walls over 3 feet will have a safety fence, both by doing what we regraded this area here, so there's no walls over 3 feet, so no safety fence would be required in that. So that's pretty much addresses all of Joe's comments and Rick's comments. So Bob, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Let me see if I got the right, good. Okay. Your voice is very hoarse there. You might have to get some dairy and honey to kind of treat that. Very helpful. Mr. Chairman, would this be a good time for Joe Canis to comment since we're focused on his peer review letter? What's transpired is he wrote his first letter, Doug responded to it, and we are waiting for follow-up comments from Joe. So would that be, is this a good time for Joe?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. For the record, Joseph Canis, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with the firm of Ty & Bond in Shelton, Connecticut. We were retained by the commission for the review of this application for the stormwater management, the sediment erosion control, as well as the grading. We were retained by both this commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I visited the site on the morning of January 19th, walked the site with town staff, including Environmental Officer Rick Talamelli, and I prepared a letter based on that site visit and my review of the plans. That letter, as Doug referred to, was dated January 26th. And I had a series of comments, mostly related to the stormwater, with some additional comments on the sediment erosion controls and site grading. As the applicant said, they did respond to my written comments. I received those a written response as well as updated plans and computations on January 31st. And unfortunately, I did not have the time to respond to those, but I will be responding to those point by point. So basically, I did skim through the materials that were provided to me, and I listened to Doug's testimony. And in general, it looks like I have enough information, just to review in further detail. But it sounds like they're on the right track with the stormwater management. I might have a few smaller comments, which could probably be addressed as conditions of approval. But I can't, make a definitive determination if this is in compliance with Section 8080 of the town stormwater management regulations until I go through and review those details. And so, as you heard from Doug, who gave a great overview of my comments, it was basically a series of mostly technical comments, a lot of comments regarding calculations, some about construction details, and a few about consistency between the engineering report and the plans. One of the items I did concentrate on is the sump pump discharge. I had a few questions about that. It looks like Doug provided thorough responses to those, and I'll go through those. And then I also had some additional questions about the wetland area, where specifically the farmer's drain. And what I'll do is I will send some photos that I have where I thought there was some erosion. It was fairly minor in nature, but now is the opportunity to address it. But that said, with the farmer's drain area, my comment logging, I was looking to see, I think it's a good idea that that bar structure was removed, because those tend to be more problematic than anything else. But what I was looking for was if there was something that could be done upstream, not obviously you would have to be on the site, but upstream of the inlet on this particular site, that could act as maybe like a debris catch, something like a stone check dam, something small, relatively unobtrusive, and something that the property owner would be, they could see the accumulation of debris up against it, and it'd be more apt to keep it maintained, and it'd be easier to maintain. So that's where I was getting with that comment. So those are the key points of my review. I think the use of infiltration systems is appropriate, is encouraged, by the town's drainage manual. So I think the applicant's on the right track, but I have to review their final their response to me in more detail to make a more definitive determination. I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Thank you, Joe. Let's get back to Bob, because I want him to finish his presentation.
Sure.
Oh, I guess somebody has to give me the thing here, I think. Or do I have it?
No, you
This
had
is
it.
Elisa with Darien Meetings. You should be the presenter now, Bob.
Okay.
Who was that?
Elisa. Yeah, Elisa, she identified as Elisa from Darien Meetings.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Matt Pop, you're up. The next part of this is our landscaping and wetland mitigation plan, and I'll try to let's try that and see how well it works.
There we go. Okay, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist. I prepared the plan that's before you. I'm going to start on the west side of the site, the left side of the site, and kind of work our way across to the east. Starting along the western property line, there's a wetland corridor just off the site. Again, it flows from the top of the sheet down to the bottom. And there's a wooded area, probably about 50 feet long along that area. There's some burning bush in there. So I propose to remove, the burning bush and kind of infill with those, with shrubs, approximately 25 native shrubs, sort of near the top of the sheet. I have a couple of trees, the larger circles, an oak and some shad. There's a little bit of debris there, so that debris would get removed and discarded. And in that area, there would be just boulders along that edge, just kind of demarcate where the edge of the lawn would be and where the woodland would remain. And going kind of in the middle of the site, those dark circles, just for habitat value, we propose Norway spruce, just for, again, provide good wildlife habitat. It also provides screening between the residences. And if you go down towards Stonewall Road, there's a couple of street trees. Those are oaks, pin oaks. They grow large, good street tree, good for wildlife habitat. If we go further to the right, towards the top of the sheet, that dark green area there, we're proposing to restore the wet meadow area. Right now, that's the wetland lawn area in that area. And we're proposing to install a fence right along that limit of the green, be a split rail fence. And the area in the green area would be maintained with the twice a year mowing. Probably the first mowing would be in the middle of July, and then the second mowing would be during the late winter months. And that will just provide those plants to allow them to grow higher. Instead of having the long grasses, would probably evolve to get more of the native grasses in that area and provide wildlife habitat. And also those additional plants, the taller they grow, they'll slow down any water flow through there and provide some sediment trapping. So if we go straight down to the smaller green area, we also provide similar type of treatment to the existing wetland lawn area. Again, we're just going to let that area become, a meadow. Portions of that edges also include the upland areas too. So the green area extends beyond the wetland in both locations. And then along Brookside Road, there's some evergreen trees and deciduous trees there, and we're just kind of infill them with again, native shade trees and some evergreen trees, mainly sugar maples along the road. And then in the smaller circles are American holly. They, again, provide great wildlife habitat. And then just within the green area, we have within the top green portion and the bottom green section, 2 sweet gums. So I think this is a plan that enhances the wetland functions of the site. I think it mitigates the impacts from the development. And if there's any questions, I'll be again happy to answer them. If you wish, in those restored wetland areas, the meadow areas, we could install a bird box too, like a blue bird box. I think that would provide a good habitat for them and suitable habitat. There was one tree along the entrance drive that was indicated to remain, or just showing that tree to be removed. It's in tough shape. It's got, if you look in it, it's hollow and it's filled with concrete and stones. Over the years, they placed the material in the trunk, so that tree would come out. So that's it quickly.
Matt, do you want to just touch on the recommendations from Paul Quick on tree protection?
I could briefly do it. I don't have the in front of me, but some of those conditions were, like showing tree protection measures. Actually, we probably would show that, not on this plan, but maybe on Doug's plan, the tree protection measures. I always think sometimes a mitigation plan gets looked at, maybe after the site is, or when the site's being developed, and they look at Doug's plans, maybe before. So some of the tree protection measures would include, not driving, underneath, or parking material or storing material underneath the trip line of trees to remain. I forget what the other conditions he recommended, but we could add those to the plan, and that we would do before the next meeting.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Matt Pop?
This is Lauren Rossi. Just for clarity, which trees on the map are proposed and which are existing?
All right, well, if you look at the western lot, in the front yard, there's a kind of there's a sort of a tree symbol with an X. If you go up a little bit, Bob, but those are trees to be removed. Those are kind of the lighter ones. If you go straight down along the street there, the ones that have initials in front of it, like a QP and a QP. If you look into the plant list, there's a key, and a QP indicates that it's a pin oak, and it has the size. So the kind of the darker ones are the new ones. If you look, let's see, if you go along the Brookside Road streetscape, you can see the symbols there, kind of the lighter symbols are the existing trees, like along the entrance drive. Those are the existing trees. And if you go just to the right there, those 3 trees, the darker ones, those are the proposed. And you can see there's 3 AS, and the AS indicates sugar maple. So, and you can see there's a key that describes what they are. The key's not shown on this plan, but it's shown on the full size sheet.
Let me
Over
see.
here. There we
Okay,
go.
keys down here.
And I have a plant list for each lot. I separate them out in case they get developed at separate times.
The way these show up typically on the plans are the darker type face, or the darker or heavier lines and heavier symbols are the proposed. And the existing are lighter, and the trees to be removed typically have an X across them. Other questions for Matt?
Yeah, I have one. Bill Wright. The grassland, the lawn between the 2 meadow areas, I was hoping we were going to do more of a meadow through that entire region, because I assume that's going to stay lawn, fertilizers, going right into that ditch and heading on out, unlike what you had all planned up one of your other projects up on the Hollow Tree. So I wish you could extend that all the way through instead of leaving that lawn for that fertilizer issue and the look.
The 2018 approval had a smaller area of mitigation on the north part of the property and no mitigation area on the south. And this plan increases the total area by roughly maybe a little bit under 50%. It goes, I think, 40% to 58% of the total wetland being mitigated for here. So it's a significant increase over what the commission already approved back in 2018. And the amount of disturbance in the upland review area, and certainly no disturbance now or before, other than the mitigation and dealing with the pipe in the trench. There's less disturbance overall, and we think this is, in light of what the previous approval was, this is the prudent way to do it.
So does a larger lawn equal a better sale versus bringing it back to more natural?
Well, it's a lawn, and it's been there long before wetland regulation. I don't, Matt, can you talk about, or maybe Jim McManus talk about restoration and things like what it's going to look like and how well you can predict what's going to happen here and what happens with evasives and things like that?
So again, the darker green areas, we're proposing the kind of the meadow areas. Most of it will be a wet meadow, but the edges where it's outside the wetland would be the upland, turn into an upland meadow. And those areas would grow, probably, maybe 2 to 3 feet in height before they, with herbaceous vegetation before they get cut. We'll cut those twice a year. Hopefully that will keep down some of the invasive species that you probably would typically get in the meadow, such as multiflora rose, and maybe some privet we would get in there. So just by mowing them down, we'll just suppress those plants. We did line up we tried to keep the lawn areas in front of that house, so that if somebody was looking out from the house, looking out towards Brookside, they would have a view over the lawn, kind of what they do now towards Brookside. I'm not sure if that area gets fertilized. Now it's not a pristine lawn area, so I would suspect that it's not getting fertilized routinely, such as areas around the house would. I would think that wouldn't be fertilized, though it might.
I guess the point is that we're doing a project here that has no impact on wetlands or watercourses, and that's really the legal standard. And the mitigation plan is more than what was already approved in 2018. And to the extent that having the existing lawn remain toward the center of the site leaves it looking the way it does today, which is pretty nice, actually.
Hey, Bob, I can jump in. This is Jim McManus, certified professional soil scientist with JMM Wetland Consulting Services, offices out of Newtown. As part of my review, I'm sure you have my report dated January 21st. I went back to the archive area photographs, went back to the latest we can go was 1934, and then I went up to the present. And what I noted that this site, as well as a lot of area around it, particularly where the golf course is now, it was either in an agriculture or some form of agricultural land or in maintained lawn. So over 80 years, this property has been either farmed, as indicated by the farm drain, or in maintained lawn. So that's a long time. And so when Matt and I were talking about what to do here with an enhancement planting, this is sort of what we came up with. And I thought we did a nice job. And it's not only the wetland areas, it's also all the plantings that Matt has together for the upland review area as well as the upland areas.
Did you finish talking there?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Okay. And the other point that is to be made, and you can see it on the larger aerial photograph. The properties to the north, the next 3 parcels are mowed lawn, and the property directly to the north actually has a catch basin with a pipe in it that was put in probably somewhere between 10, maybe 15 years ago. But those 3 properties in a row are all lawn, and this is just the same. So again.
So Robert, I live in the property just north of it. My pipe has been in there since 1960, maybe 1950. So don't say it's been put in for 15 years. I've listened to this bullshit for an hour now, and I'm just absolutely exhausted by this. So don't say that.
You want to identify yourself, sir? You want to identify yourself and your address, please?
191 Brookside. I'm just north. So, Robert, I would like to know when any of you experts have been to see the property, because the farmer's ditch is an absolute disaster.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Spillane, we'll open it up to the public, and soon enough. Attorney Maslin has the floor. Attorney Maslin has the floor, and he has to finish his presentation first.
Okay. Any other questions on Matt and Jim McManus's,
This is Mike Irvin. Yeah, I do, Bob, Matt. Matt, in your summary, you mentioned that the new deciduous and evergreen trees were to improve the habitat of the wetlands. It appears to me that they're primarily screening abutting the street or the in between the two lots. If one would, just going off of your statement, if one wanted to improve the habitat, wouldn't you plant more deciduous or plant these said deciduous trees and evergreen trees closer to the wetlands? And that's what I think I would like to see is in some of this open space on lot A and B, or lot 1 and 2, excuse me, in that open space, some trees. Thank you.
So if you're trying to have like a meadow, like if you say you're trying to attract meadow wildlife, such as like bluebirds or tree swallows, planting trees kind of within the meadow takes away from that meadow, and you're least likely to get those that type of wildlife. So again, a wet meadows, a type of habitat with no trees, maybe some small shrubs mixed in. But again, I would say once you start putting in trees in there, you lose the quality of the wet meadow. Originally, Jim McManus did have proposed plantings, in those darker green areas, and I kind of recommended, not having those in there, mainly again just to keep it, an open meadow. Again, it's better habitat for meadow species. And again, I didn't plant any shrubs in there too, because I thought that, if you plant shrubs within that meadow, it would be tough to maybe keep the deer from, feeding on them. So again, the trees along the streetscape, I think that's, they're good for, again, wildlife, but also for aesthetics. There's no utility lines overhead, which is kind of nice. We can certainly move those closer, towards the wetland. But again, I think you lose the character of the wet meadow. But again, I think the applicant would be willing to ship those trees into the wetland if you wish.
No, I'm not suggesting that you push them into the wetland. I respect the new meadow proposal. What I'm speaking to is the areas between north and south, between so specifically speaking to lot number 2, is maybe an outcropping of deciduous and evergreen trees in that area to the north, and similarly to the area to the south. And then in respect to lot number 1, I think you've done a pretty good job with your planting plan there, because that's what abuts, or was it within the review area of the wetlands. That's my comment to the commission.
Yeah. I'm sure that once you get a full landscape plan for that, like around the house and pool and yard, there'll be additional plantings. I'm sure there'll be probably additional evergreen trees to screen out, neighbors, to the north. Maybe they would want to screen out the road, also to the Brookside Road. So again, this is kind of a the small least amount of plantings that would be there, and there'll be again additional plantings. I would call them maybe the ornamental plantings. So I would expect additional plantings to be installed.
So what you're saying is you propose to plant ornamental trees in the areas that I just spoke of. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure of the area. So, but I would think, like the western lot, coming in, you probably wouldn't have a front yard with the parking area with no tree there to anchor the parking lot. I would think that you would have additional screening between the two residents. I think there probably would be screening even along the northern property line to screen the house up from the north, even though, it's some distance away. There probably would be additional plantings there. So these are plantings that would be tied to, the wetland permit that are shown on this plan.
So if the planting plan isn't final, should the commission review a final planting plan?
But this is the final planting plan associated with the wetlands. I would say these would be required to be planted. I would say that once you get around the house, the plantings there. If you show those plantings, people have their own preference. They may not want a tree in one location; they want to move it. So I would say, like around the house, that those wouldn't be appropriate probably at this time. And those would be up to the homeowner's desire, and not tied to the permit.
So Bob, I guess that I have a question. Is there strong opposition about planting a mixture, a speckling, an outcropping of deciduous and evergreen trees, for the record, in the approximate area of where the present map on the screen says lot number 2, and to the south where it says wetlands, just to speckle in some plantings? Because what I see, so just be quite candid, is I see screening trees, and then your representatives state that this is going to improve the habitat. But I would say trees that would improve the habitat would be in proximity to the meadow. That's not where we're putting the trees. My proposal is not to put trees in the meadows, but I would believe that, and I'd be interested to hear contrary testimony, that said trees in this open lawn area would improve the habitat.
I'm not, are you talking about this area with a red?
Correct.
Red
And
pointer?
then, so that would be one area, and then the other areas move up north of the driveway. Yeah. And that approximate area.
I think that the homeowner would be, probably willing to install some trees in that area. Again, I tried to keep the trees away from the meadow area, but I think that, but if you thought that would be helpful, I think that, we'd be willing to do that.
I would to my other commissioners to opine on that as well.
Yeah, it's Peter McGinnis. I was also going to agree. I think, fundamentally, as I see it, I think the homeowner may view this as their front lawn, looking towards Brookside, and I can understand that from, certainly a marketability point of view. But we do have a wetlands area here, and I would also echo Commissioner Irwin's point about the fertilizer, because we know fertilizer, once it gets washed away, is going to end up in the drain and eventually end up in the Long Island Sound.
This is Jim McManus again. Seasonally, I mean, yes, it looks like a front lawn, but seasonally that area gets fairly wet. I mean, it is a wetland. There's a farm drain in it for a reason. And also, I mean, that entire area on both sides of the driveway, like I said, has been historically disturbed. So though it is a wetland area, the functionality of that wetland is minimal. And we stand by the fact that we're improving it from over 80 years. We're first time it's been enhanced since over 80 years. And I think it's more than appropriate for what we're doing here.
But going back to the farmland 80 years, aren't you increasing the intensity of use on this, though, from an environmental point of view?
No, we've installed the best management practices, and absolutely not. And my report actually said so at the very end of it. I didn't really go through my report, but I did do a functionality assessment, and it really only does minimal stuff. It does some groundwater recharge, discharge. It does clean up sediment and nutrient removal through the plantings and such. And it's actually going to do a little better job now. But at the end is our conclusion. It's my conclusion. It's the team's conclusion that along with the due diligence during the construction phase, that and with the wetland enhancement plantings, the proposal will not have a significant adverse short-term during construction or long-term water quality or habitat impacts upon the regulated resource, both on and off site. And we stand by that.
Mr. Chairman, I live next door to this place, and I have for 28 years. And I've got
Excuse me. The series of the public hearing goes that we listen to the applicant first. The next series will be if questions from the commissioners, and then we'll open it up to the public. Okay, and so I know you're gnawing at the bit to get in there, and I appreciate it, but there's a process to this, and I want Attorney Maslin to finish his presentation here before you get to jump in, okay, as a member of the public. So I hope you can appreciate that, and I appreciate your patience. Thank you. Robert?
Okay, any other commission questions, comments about our landscaping and mitigation before?
This is Michael Irvin again. Yeah, Bob. One more, and Matt, one more question is, and I apologize if I missed this. When is the new meadow going to be planted? Is that going to be continuous with the new construction?
So the way that would get established is, we're not planting it. We're just putting up just like the fence around the perimeter of it, the split rail fence, and just allowing the existing lawn area to revert back, naturally to a meadow. We're not excavating the existing lawn area out and seeding it. I think that would be more of an adverse impact. But again, situations like this where you have a wetland lawn, it's almost routine, it seems like, just to allow those areas to revert back naturally.
I'm sorry, let me be more specific. Like if there were invasives to remove or any cleanup, I understand that it's a lawn area, but if there's any order of operation that you have to take, is that going to be done before construction commences, during, or after? And then just the follow-up is that going to get all construction fenced off so that a stockpile of material doesn't propagate itself abutting the meadow areas?
So there's no debris in those areas like now, and it's just an existing lawn area, so there's no non-native invasive species in there currently. So again, it would just be fenced off. And I think it's a good point what you just brought up about construction, maybe vehicles. So we want to make sure that the silt fence is installed along the kind of the perimeter of the wetland, first thing, so there's no stockpiling of materials in the wetland or even in the mitigation areas. So that should be done, before any excavation starts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I comment on this?
Please.
I truly feel that the planting plan and the mitigation plan that's been presented here is grossly insufficient. I mean, the task under the subdivision regulations is to identify resources on the property and to show that you can develop without a significant adverse impact on any resources, not only just wetlands, but exclusive resources. They mentioned those as well in the subdivision regulations. And it was, there was an activity on the site 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 60 years ago. It's within the purview of the board to look at the wetlands and water courses on the property and other areas of resource and make sure that we are adequately protecting them and enhancing them. We're recognizing that they are a valuable resource, and when you have the opportunity to enhance this, I think that what has been proposed to date is very limited in scope and limited in value. where if you're just enhancing only very small pockets of space on the property on a portion of the wetland. I think it'd be more fruitful here for wetland protection and enhancement is if that demarcation feature ran parallel to the wetlands line, that the wet meadow would be restored in total. And it's not necessarily through the applications of hundreds of plantings. And I will say that the board, not more than 3 or 4 months ago, looked at a project that was almost very similar, almost parallel to this project. And there was a near complete wetland restoration with hundreds and hundreds of plantings that were installed, applied to the entire wet meadow. So I think this is a step backwards. And I think that this area can be really made an asset to the community, and it can be closely incorporated into the design of this project, because I'm sure they'll do a great job on the house. They've done an outstanding job, I think, demonstrating feasibility. But we should look at the entire wetland as a whole, and it should be a demarcation feature between the upland development and the wetland. 50 feet back, some other reasonable area setback, and some select planting within the wetland, and invasive removal, and allowing this to go fallow and to restore itself. And you can make it suitable for a urban space by doing, as Matt had proposed, clearing, so select mowings during the year, after the seasons of birds are nesting and so forth. And probably in July and November would be a close year in general. And there have been some great success stories of restoring wetland throughout Fairfield County. I can take the one right off of Greenwich, and I have one right here in Darien that's being proposed, not more than a half mile away. And it hasn't started yet, but so there, this can be easily achieved with not a ton of cost, with little implications for the sale of the house. You make it an asset. You recognize the importance of the resource, and you make this an asset. So you can do a firm demarcation with a split rail fence or similar. You allow it to go fallow for some period of time. You do select cuttings, you do select pruning in there, you do take out the invasives, and you have a good maintenance plan for the space that, and again, it's recognizing what the value of wetlands for all its functions and values that we've talked about, going back to Jim's prior assessments. It's going to be seasonally flooded, it's going to be seasonally saturated. It does have value in terms of open space, nutrient, as a nutrient sink, and really a critical storm water management and flood control kind of system in this area as well. But you can also make it increase its habitat value by making it a meadow, making it a true meadow, not a part of a meadow, but a true meadow and throughout. And it doesn't have to be exclusionary. It can be melded together to make it a real positive for the house, benefit to the house, a benefit to the neighbors, and a benefit to the community. And as far as the trees, I think the arborist did a pretty good job in assessing trees of value and how they should protect it. And I think Matt brought this up. Any plan that the commission sees from this point forward needs to take those recommendations and show it on the plan. How are you going to protect it? Where it is. So somebody out there who's cutting trees know we must have the fence of the drip line around these trees. Arborists identify them as being trees of value. Trees of, trees not value, such as the one that's along that driveway that's filled with concrete block and rebar. It's going to be an impediment. They'd be back before the commission in 6 months requesting to remove trees and regrade in wetlands because it tore up the site.
Sure.
The same thing, trees, unbalanced trees, they have decay. Don't save it. Don't save the tree. But just getting back, make the wetland, recognize it for what it's worth. It doesn't matter what happened in 2018. It doesn't matter what happened or they're back now before the commission, this commission. And I think that they should make it a true asset in all of it. And again, it's not exclusionary. You can make it a real benefit to the home, the homeowner, and future homeowners, and the community at large. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take, $300,000. It takes a good fence to kind of keep it segregated from the space that's going to be the residential development on it. It's going to be management of the space, which is, allowing it to grow. It's not going to grow more, over the top. It's going to be cut a couple times a year. The invasives are going to be taken out. And if Matt and Jim, do their usual good job, they can enhance it with some planting within it that's complementary to an open meadow. I mean, where do you see meadows when they transition? You start to see like red cedars and those types of plants. You can add some red cedars. You can add some habitat valued plantings in there, not necessarily throughout the entire thing. And the other things that you have on the floor of the wet meadow will come back if you allow it to.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. You're going to have a lawn here. It's going to be mowed all the time. It's going to be fertilized. I would do the same thing if it was my lawn. What it should be is recognized for what it is. It's a meadow. You can make it a wet meadow. You can make it functional, and you can make it an asset. So I think that the plan needs some work.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. That was very good. Okay.
Any other commission comments? We'll consider all these comments and come up with something.
Okay, well, on landscaping, do you have, you want to continue, Bob?
Well, I'm going into the next section, so I thought I would just ask one more time. Okay. I have some photographs here of the farmer's drain, and Doug can talk about some of these because he took some of them. The slide I have up here has two photographs that were taken in 2018. The left-hand side picture is this north end of what I would call a farmer's drain, right about where the property line is. It's up in this section that's at the upper portion of the right-hand picture. You can see water flowing. You can see the bottom of it. There's a pipe outlet here, and I believe there's another outlet up closer to here, which I believe is on the adjacent property. The right-hand picture shows what the farmer's drain looked like in 2018. And these are just a couple more photographs down toward where the pipe is under the driveway. And back then, the farmer's drain was completely covered over, and you couldn't even see the pipe here. And then work was done. This photograph was taken on September 24th, 2021 at 7:30 in the morning. And this is after a rainfall that left 2.81 inches of rain. And that was an overnight storm. And I've gotten that information from a combination of sources. One is NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a government agency that tracks historic weather data, and another source, which is private, called Weather Underground, that has an hour-by-hour tracking for the same day. And this, I was able to determine that the storm finished by the time this photograph was taken. The rain stopped about 6:30 in the morning. This does show that the farmer's drain here is conveying water down toward the driveway and into the pipe. Let me see what happened. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is a video, and I'm not sure if it's going to play or not, but this is another photograph of the same farmer's drain. This was taken January 17th of 2022 after an overnight rain. It wasn't as much rain, 1.29 inches. Again, it's an overnight storm, but you don't see any backup here. Water is kind of making its way down toward the culvert. Oh, here's the video. So the water is making its way through. And this little farmer's drain runs along the low point of a much wider basin that covers north portion of this site. The water is flowing into the pipe with no difficulty. This photograph I took on January 6th, or somebody took it. It does show an accumulation of silt or leaves or debris of some sort in the pool, which means the pool here is functioning the way it's supposed to. And the photograph on the right shows the inlet end of the pipe. The significance of this one is that there are no obstructions in this end of the pipe. Sometime after an earlier video was taken that showed 3 bars that were located vertically a few inches inside the pipe. I think somebody mentioned before that they caused more problems than they're worth, and that ended up trapping a bunch of debris in here and caused a backup back in, I think that other video was a few years ago. Now I have a video here. This is in the record. It was submitted by a neighbor. It's on the town's application page, and I want to, maybe Doug can talk about this. This is narrated by the person who took the video, and I don't, well, we could tell from the metadata that was taken on December 14th, 2019, following a 2.16 inch rainstorm that started with an inch of snow on the ground. And it shows ponding that ran from the driveway leading to 205 Brookside south to the driveway that leads to 191, and the driveway that leads to 193 is flooded because there's a low point. So here's the video.
Looking north from my driveway over 205 Brookside. This swings across our driveway in between the split rail fence to just south of me, and that's 191 Brookside Road. In the direction in the far distance of 175 Brookside.
If you'll note that the driveway, this ending view here is to the south, where my little red dot is the driveway that leads to 191. The ponding occurs upstream or north of this driveway, and on the other side of the driveway you see lawn. You don't see a backup. I don't know if I can go back. I'll try. At the beginning of that same video, you'll see the driveway going to 205 is up at a higher elevation, and there's actually some freeboard shown. And then when you get to this driveway that the video is taken from, you'll see the low point.
This swings across.
And that low point is right in here.
In between the split rail fence to just south of me, and that's 191 Brookside
and
Road.
Here's that 191 driveway.
In the far distance of 175 Brookside.
And this again was taken in 2019. This is the beginning of a video that shows the pipe blockage. Now this is after the pipe replacement was done sometime around July of 2019, long before the current owners purchased the property. And these next two videos will really show what the blockage was all about. So we start here, there's
Solid
leaves.
mass. Absolutely a solid mass. Look at this. You can hear it. Look at the water flow. Solid mass. Where'd it go? Except for your good watch. Look at the whole pipe was stuck.
You can see the 3 rods there at the inlet end of the pipe. Right in here. Those have since been removed. We don't know who put them in. We don't know who took them out. It all occurred prior to the current owner's purchase of the property. This slide is a duplicate, so I'm not going to dwell on this. But this next slide was taken on September 2nd after that major storm that was well over a 200-year storm. And similar to the first video of the driveway flooding, you'll see the driveway to 205 is up at a little bit of a higher elevation, and there's some freeboard there, and then you see the water level. And when you get to this driveway, you'll see this is significantly more flooding across the low point of the driveway to 193. And then it connects to the ponding between this driveway and the driveway to 191. And again, there's lawn behind the driveway to 191. There's no backup from 175 coming on to this area of ponding here. And when you look at these with an eye toward things like elevations and where the driveways are, these 3 driveways in a row, they form barriers or berms that retain stormwater. And unfortunately for the 193 driveway, that driveway has a low point right about in the middle of it, and that's where the water flows seeking its own level. So the point of these videos, and I guess the neighbor wanted us to see them, so I thought, well, let's see if we can figure this out and try to come up with an explanation. Doug DeVesta, do you have anything to add to that analysis? You're the
No, I don't, but I think, you've covered it pretty well, Bob. But looking at the town topo, which we have, we could bring that up if you want to see it. From our driveway crossing at 175 to about where the 191 driveway is, about a 5-foot differential in elevation. So to really get any backup, we would need, the water needs to get at least 5 feet. And at that point, it's going to start overtopping our driveway at 175, which I've never seen it. And I don't think it has ever backed up that high there. Also, it does indicate that the trash rack or the bars that were in that 12-inch pipe were working to keep any leaves and sediment from getting down into the piping system itself. So it was working. And Joe did bring up a point early on in tonight's presentation, is that we need to look at some kind of maybe putting a trash rack on there, but not a vertical trash rack. There was a plunge pool installed when the farmer's drain was installed back in 2019, but since then, the property has been vacant for a period of time, and that plunge pool has filled in, so that will need to be maintained, and that will help keep a lot of the debris from getting down into our piping system and potentially cause any backup onto our property. But I think just elevation wise, we've got plenty of elevation between the 2 properties that really this water is not being backed up from 175.
And is this more a question of fixing the plunge pool and being more diligent about ongoing maintenance?
I think just by doing the general maintenance of the plunge pool, adding a trash rack and making sure that's maintained, that will certainly help keep the water flowing in terms of it backing up to, to 191, 193, and 205. I'm not sure if that's going to be, if that's going to alleviate any of that flooding issues, but it will at least keep the water flowing.
Okay. And that brings me to the last slide, and I just mentioned environmental considerations here. Obviously, expecting to be continued so we can address comments that have been made along during the hearing tonight. Development activities on Lot 1 are now outside the inland wetlands and upland review areas, and that's an improvement over the 2018 approved plan, which did have some grading work, and I believe some of the retaining walls were located in the upland review area adjacent to that wetland area to the west. For lot number 2, the development activities are reduced a bit compared to the 2018 plan. There's an increase of 18%, meaning going from 40% of the total wetland to 58% of the total wetland as a mitigation area, and that includes a significant area down at the south side of lot number 2. New stormwater management systems based on fresh meadow approach, which means that up to the 50-year storm, there's no runoff resulting from the impervious surfaces that will be located on lots 1 and 2 in and around the footprint of the house. Right now, there's no engineered system, so you're getting some stormwater runoff into, well, there's kind of a split. Part of it goes to the west, most of it goes to the east, I guess. And so these new stormwater systems are an improvement in terms of quality and a reduction in the quantity down toward the wetland and off-site. Code compliant septic systems, that's under the current code. Don't know how long the septic system has been in service on this property, but it always helps. It's a benefit to have new systems. The health department's already signed off on the septic locations, both primary and reserve. And we'll have maintenance plans for the stormwater management systems and the farmer's drain. And that's it. So those are our, that's our presentation for this evening. And we're here to answer any questions from commission staff, anyone else. Joe Canis is still here if he has questions as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, what I'd like to do now is to go around the commissioners and say, Bill Wright, would you have any questions or comments?
No, I think I asked mine, and I like Rick's presentation, exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael Urban? Michael, you're on mute. Michael? Michael, you're on mute.
But it looks like he's muted.
Yeah, I can see him there, but I can unmute him, right? No, I can't. Michael? All right, we'll skip him for now. Peter?
Yes, maybe I could just ask Attorney Maslin, when you say there are no water courses, are you talking about a legal definition, or are you talking about intermittent water courses? I mean, obviously the farmer's drain and some of that video would suggest to me that there is a course of water, but how are you defining the statement that there are no water courses?
I didn't say there are no water courses. I don't think I said that. I think what I said, I think what you're referring to is when I said that there are no activities in wetlands or water courses. And there are no wetlands or water courses on lot number 1. but we've been talking all evening about wetlands and the farmer's drain on the eastern part of the property, and the farmer's drain is obviously a watercourse because it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to understand that statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Carolyn Bain?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say that I agree with everything that Rick said earlier about the meadow and allowing the wetland area. You can see in those photos how even when we were looking at the farmer's drain before the flooding, like how kind of soggy the area is. I really think that, I mean, I understand that this is more than what was approved in 2018 and that historically this has been grass and that lawns are pervasive in the neighborhood, but I really feel, I agree with everything that Rick said about how I think that we should be, I mean, we're living in different times too, so we have storms that have much greater intensity, and I really think that we should be restoring the meadows there. And even a step further, I don't understand why, I mean, the farmer's drain, I think, could also be restored to a lovely brook. I don't understand why it has to be this, you know, have the capstones and be so narrow. I think that if the meadow were restored and we had a lovely brook going there, it would accommodate a greater amount of water. You wouldn't have the issues with maintenance that you have with the capstones falling in. Those are my comments.
If I could just make one point on the farmer's drain, legally we can't do anything here that will increase the downstream flow. That would have an impact on the downstream properties, and I know I've gotten an inquiry from the person who lives at number two Stonewall, Mr. Yuen, and this whatever goes into this pipe goes through the catch basins across his property. So legally we can't increase the flow downstream. So that's one reason we can't do anything that's going to increase the flow. We're kind of sandwiched in between making sure we don't encumber the downstream property and at the same time don't cause any backups that wouldn't ordinarily occur. And that, I think, amounts to taking care of the inlet to the pipe, making sure that clogs are addressed promptly, and keeping the farmer's drain open so that water can flow through it during rainstorms. And there's also a flow of water that remains after the end of storms, which also is part of the definition of intermittent watercourse. But all of that happens, and it's kind of a delicate balance that we have to maintain.
Carolyn, anything else?
You know, just again, if the meadow were allowed to grow, that would help to sort of, it would sort of help to stem the flow of water even going into the watercourse. So just another. I did see your maintenance schedule, your recommended maintenance schedule for the farmer's drain, and I'm just wondering how, you know, there's nothing to be enforced there. So that's just a recommendation. Is that right?
Doug?
That's correct. I mean, that maintenance of the farmer's drain will be done, you know, through regular lawn maintenance of the property. In terms of enforcement, that's something that, you know, that this commission has, you know, wants to put something in the condition of approval for, you know, enforcement. That's one thing, but the farmer's drain will maintain. If it gets blocked up, the homeowner needs to get out there and clean it, or have someone clean it out for them. So it's you know, it benefits them too if they maintain it at a regular basis.
Stormwater management plan, maintenance plans are standard now at planning and zoning. Whenever you have a new stormwater system going in, there's a notice of stormwater management plan that goes on the land records, and there's a plan in the zoning file that, so that's a standard condition that we have already, and that's been in place for a few years now.
Okay, Carolyn?
Yeah,
You have
thanks.
more? You have more? Okay, Lauren Rossi, please.
Yeah, so I see that some of these things that were mentioned were approved by the commission in 2018. I wasn't on the commission in 2018, but I think that, you know, we are taking a look at this and, you know, weighing it out just as we would any other case that comes before us today with our new members. And so with that in mind, I think I just wanted to reiterate my concerns. Number one was that there are a lot of trees, it appears, that are being removed, and Rick had pointed out that some of the trees, we don't really know which on the plan and which in person are the ones that are of value. And so I think that that's a really great idea to identify those both on the plan and in person. And then I think adding the wetlands, extending the wetlands, the idea that we discussed, I agree with that. And I think, you know, plantings as well as the erosion control idea, and I think Joe said he was going to take another look at that, will be helpful for us to lay eyes on. And adding some sort of delineation like a fence or something else creative to identify the wetlands could add value as well to keep that maintained. And then lastly, I agree with the trash rack sort of idea where, you know, if we're going to be able to put something like that in there, that's a little more helpful of an engineering solution, that could add value to the process as well. So it's less maintenance heavy. So those are just my thoughts, just to contribute. That's all I had.
Thank you, Lauren. I have a few questions or comments, Robert. When as Carolyn mentioned the use of capstones in the farmer's drain, I understand from aesthetics it may look better or may be safer. I'm not sure about that, but I'm not sure of the value of the capstones in the farmer's drain. I would like for you to consider, Joe Connis mentioned the possibility of, Joe, and tell me if I got this right, Stone Check Dam, okay, you mentioned. And what I would like to do is to understand if does that have a role to, should we take Joe up on that and see what that can do to this? I agree, let me see. The cleanup of lot number 1, I think you've mentioned a couple of times, and I want to do this. The maintenance plan for a Coltex is another one. That's an easy one. I'm sure you have that from other properties. I come back as, you know, I heard what Rick Talinelli said on the making it a full wetlands with fences and things like this. And I'll come back to, since we're starting with a green meadow here, what took me, Bob, in the presentation was the western lot goes on to Stonewall. Okay, goes on to Stonewall. And looking at the property there, it would be a shorter driveway if the eastern lot went to Stonewall also. You took that driveway out totally and made that, you know, just you know, whatever it is, you know, the inland wetland there and a nice wetland area that would certainly enhance the wetland to what Rick was talking about. I wonder if that's a reasonable and prudent alternative to consider in this case. To put it, thank you for putting it on the screen, Bob. I wonder if that's a reasonable and prudent alternative to do that. And then we can, you know, do we need the since we don't have the driveway there, could we just have the stream go all the way through, or the farmer's drain, or whatever it was? Okay, because that property was probably, the drain was clearly when that driveway was put in, there was a drain there was the tube put in there. So I'd appreciate if someone could take a look at that, because I think that's a reasonable and prudent alternative that has not been considered at this point. I guess that's what I guess that's where I am so far on this. Okay, I finished, Bob. If you want to comment.
I'm sorry, what? You finished?
I finished my questions and comments here. If you want to comment on what I've just said.
We'll take your comments and thoughts and think about them and come back next month.
Okay. Okay. At this point, is there any other commission member that would like to, excuse me, Rick, would you like to say something?
I would just like to say, it appeared to me that as far as the farmer's drain, now, you know, the prior contract purchaser took a condition with the approval of the agency to restore the farmer's drain to the extent that they could. And the, you know, it's really an accumulation of stone on the sides with a capstone on it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not solid. So you have water flowing through a very minimal kind of channel below. And then, and I thought the photographs were great. In storms of greater magnitude, it flows not only there, but over the top. And with that, you can see I think, areas of erosion, and also the water filters down through the stone, and the stones loosen, and I think it ends up being a maintenance problem.
Yes.
And I think that's where, you know, we have to look at it and say, and you saw the accumulation of leaf debris and litter and those kinds of things. You know, maybe the board considers, commission considers undoing that to make it an open channel in that area. Yeah. It eliminates the possibility of failure in saddling a future homeowner with a $10,000, $20,000 bill to have somebody with an excavator go in there and to restore that. You know,
no, it was Carolyn's idea, if I was correct, right, Carolyn?
You know,
yeah. I mean, I said widen it as well, but I understand the limitations to doing that. But yeah, my main point was to make it like more like a brook than to have this you know, this covered thing with the rocks, the capstones falling in, because, you know, we looked at it and there are several of them that are, it's very precarious looking.
So I think what happens is that, you know, maybe that's an option that the commission considers, is you take it and you do a section and you form a swale there.
Mm-hmm.
To convey the water. I mean, the limiting factor is going to be the pipe. So I don't think that you're going to be affecting downstream property owners by doing that. It eliminates the maintenance hazard and maybe provides, albeit, you know, again, I don't necessarily believe that, you know, there's a condition upstream that is being, you know, exacerbated by the development of this property. But if there's a condition on the property that through poor maintenance or structure maintenance, I think there is a responsibility to take a look at it and perhaps address it. So I think one of the things that you may consider, because it's also a positive from an environmental standpoint, is to untap the capstones and have a nice swale, and then perhaps that can be planted and incorporated into the design of that space. I don't necessarily think that the removal of the driveway, it is an alternative, but then we have to go through the test of it. Is it prudent and feasible to do that? And
no, because then you open up the whole wetland.
Correct.
Okay, then you open up the whole wetland, and it takes it to, you know, it enhances the whole thing, makes a shorter driveway. Now, whether it's reasonable and prudent, I'll leave that up to the applicant.
Is, again, commission, you know, maybe should consider if the problem is less of increase on, because they're doing a good job of maintaining what's being developed, what's being generated from the houses. The problem is a maintenance problem in that section, then maybe you can eliminate it by just making an open swale. You expose the storm and the flow through the brook to sunlight and aeration and the whole bit. And plus, you're not saddling somebody with a long-term maintenance problem.
Yeah.
It's just an option that
Needs to be considered.
And one thing that I didn't agree with the testimony tonight is from the section from the pipes on the property to the north to where it enters the farmer's drain. It almost looks like to me that when they went and did the maintenance activities over the last 3 or 4 years, because they kind of basically took a bucket and went through there, because the slopes are very short and steep and almost vertical in that space, and I think are subject to erosion. And I think one of the pictures really reflected that they are pretty eroded. So, if you create a swale in there, not a swale, but a water course with slopes that are more gentle and they're planted, maybe it's an asset. The agency should consider it's an asset in terms of habitat, conveyance of flow, and maintenance. I suppose that it should be considered.
Yes. Thank you, Rick. That's well said. Okay, are there any other commission members that would like to have some final comments and questions before I open it up to the public?
Can I just say one thing about the driveway, Eric?
Sure.
The removing the driveway would, I guess it presents a question, what do you do in its place? What's happened over the years is this and the properties to the north have sort of developed themselves into detention basins or retention basins, where during the major storms, these low depressed areas fill with water rather than having all of the water go downstream. And on this site, the pipe acts as a metered relief discharge from the area. I guess you can look at this wetland area north of the driveway and look at it as a large detention basin, where in a very, very large storm, it may fill up with water because it reaches the capacity of the pipe and it ponds up a bit and then meters out based on the size of the pipe. If you take the driveway out, you're taking that berm out. And what happens with a major storm? Is it going to go right downstream? Will you lose the detention effect or the benefit of having detention there? So these are things that we have to talk to Doug and Joe Canis about. But it's a good question.
Yes, Robert, absolutely. Those are excellent questions, and I just wanted to throw it out there because no one else had. I wanted people to consider this and to sit there and say, since this is a greenfield, if you will, let's take a look at it. And if Doug and Joe come up with excellent, excellent comments on this, hey, we've considered it. That's all.
No, that's fine. And we did think about it before, and we'll take another look at it.
Appreciate it.
There's one thing that's is that I agree with Bob that it is a careful balance what you do. He's absolutely correct about what's become the function here is with the driveway there and essentially like the metering structure of the pipe. It does detain.
Okay, then I have a question for you, Rick. Rick, is to say, Jim McManus said, well, this has been there for 80 years, etc. I don't think that house has been there for 80 years. Okay, the now demolished house was there and when the farmer's drain was originally created, it certainly wasn't created with the tube there to moderate the flow downstream. Okay, so my argument to that is to say it does now, and I absolutely agree with that. Okay, is that the way it was originally intentioned? Okay, and I don't think so. Because it was probably just the farmer's drain up from from the 3 properties north, running down through before Stonewall Lane was created. I think Stonewall Lane was created Bob, you probably remember, Stonewall Lane was created in what, the 60s? 50s? Late,
70s, I think. I'd have to look. I did know, but I don't know now.
Okay, because then there was a channel that went all the way down into the wetlands, which are just south. There's a serious swamp just south of Stonewall, and then Overbrook, excuse me, not Buttonwood, which is the next street down, cuts it off, and then after that there's another swamp. So there probably was one continuous swamp there originally, and then given the different construction considerations at the time these roads were built, that's probably they just didn't care. Yes. Yes.
No, he may be correct. This is not. But he was talking about like within the channel, within the farmer's train, finding a spot to do like a stone, something stone structure.
Stone check dam was his term.
In collecting debris and silt.
Yes.
As opposed to putting a trash rack in front of them.
Right.
So it's within the channel itself.
Yes, that's right. Well, I think Bob has the comment, and he'll go back with his experts to think about that and see what's the best alternative here. Okay, so there's nobody else from the commission that would like to speak?
Yeah, it just
sure.
Stonewall, I am looking at on my computer. I'm not going to bore you with it, but there's a 1964 subdivision map creating the lots on Stonewall. And then this property that we're talking about, the subject site was, I think they tinkered with the property boundary at some point after that, but it's a subdivision that was done in the mid 1960s.
My memory's not that bad, huh, Rick? Okay, thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Okay, let's open it up to the public. Okay, when the public comments, I would appreciate if they would direct their comments towards me, the chairman. I would appreciate if when you opened, you would state your name and your street address so that we can identify you. And that's for the court records and for the record. So is there somebody from the public that would like to speak?
Yes, hi, it's Cheryl Lincoln.
Hi, Cheryl.
How are you?
The floor is yours.
Thank
okay.
you.
Her last name is spelled Lincoln?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And Cheryl with an S.
Cheryl with an S. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I know it's late, so I'll try to keep my comments short.
Excuse me, Cheryl, your address, please.
205 Brookside Road.
205, okay.
Yes, so I'm north of 175 and 191 Brookside Road. I've lived in my property for 24 years, and I am not an expert in engineering or wetlands or anything else, but I might call myself an expert in observing the water flow of these three properties because I've been doing it for 24 years. When my three little girls were growing up in my house, there was an unwanted water feature in my front yard. So it was something dangerous that I was focused on. So watching the water drain was very important to me. And at that point, I could see the water draining because on the north side of my driveway and the south side of my driveway, I saw very specific water pools that you would see a bathtub draining. And so I knew the water was moving. Now, throughout the years and throughout the storms we've had and the floods we've had, sometimes the water moved and sometimes the water didn't. And I think, Rick, if I have everybody correct, I'm sorry, I'm working off of a Zoom here and I'm not familiar with everybody, but you put it beautifully of saying that it's maintenance. And when these drains are maintained properly, the water moves. And yes, they flood. And we, you know, it's part of what you said. There's low points in the property, but it floods. And when you see it flooding, it gives you comfort. When you don't see it flooding, it gives you concern. And in the last couple of storms, yes, they were severe, but it was eerily still. And it started to raise alarm that, you know, there is significant water in a residential area that's not moving. And like I said, you put it beautifully, if this is maintained, it can be managed. If it's not maintained, it becomes an issue of safety. And if we can, you know, at the mercy of the committee, if you can put something in place where it makes sense and it doesn't have to become a maintenance issue every time there's a storm, then that would be, you know, that I would appreciate that very much. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Lincoln. Okay, is there another member of the public that would like to speak? Hello, is there another member of the public that would like to speak? Mr. Spillane, this is your moment.
Oh, I would like to speak. I'm sorry, I thought that Mrs. Millard was going to speak before that. So, yes, so I am at 191 Brookside Road.
And your full name is, sir?
Paul Spillane.
Paul Spillane, okay.
Yeah, 191 Brookside Road. So I've lived at my property for 28 years, and I have a lot of questions for, first of all, I'd like to thank the EPC. You guys have done an amazing job. I don't know how you do this month in and month out. This is absolutely exhausting.
It's the money.
You know, I've been in business for 45 years, and I've never had a meeting that goes into 10:45 at night. So thank you for doing this. You guys are amazing, and thank you. So look, I just have a couple of comments. One, any comments about downstream is ridiculous because nothing can go downstream that goes through the driveway at 175. That pipe is the choke point, and nothing can go past the choke point. Over the last 28 years, we have done everything we could do to maintain the drainage between the north side of the Lincoln's property and 175. Several years ago, 2018, I believe, Doug said, you replaced the entire pipe on the south side of the driveway. Great job. You put I couldn't remember from Doug's comments whether it was a 12-inch pipe, a 14-inch pipe, an 18-inch pipe, a 14-inch pipe that went into a 30-inch pipe. But, you know, Doug had lots of comments, but I was there when they did that. And that really improved what was happening. So the choke point is actually the pipe under the driveway. We are not asking for anything to happen to the driveway or the pipe underneath it, but it's interesting that EPC and the Sykes actually got approval to replace the pipe on the south side of their driveway. Nothing can happen from the north to the south. It doesn't go through their pipe. All we are asking for is to let the water come from our pipes, which go from, you know, the wetlands above the Lincoln's property, through the Millard's property, through my property, through a 12.5-inch pipe, into the Sykes old property now, which is 175. And if we have a 12-inch pipe going to the 14-inch pipe, that should never, ever have a problem. You have more pipe going down. So south of 175 is never going to be an issue. What has happened when Doug recommended we put a farmer's drain in, the farmer's drain has collapsed. For the first 6 months of the farmer's drain, we had a 14-inch pipe or trench or whatever it was, and things went to wind. I would love everyone to look up what a farmer's drain is. A farmer's trench actually collects sediment. So all the sediment that is coming from all the way up and down Brookside Road is now ending up on 175 Brookside Road, and nobody is taking care of it. So I would like to see if Doug and who's the architect on the trees, we have more wildlife at our compound than anybody could ever imagine. So we're not worried about the wildlife. Matt, I don't know the last time you were at 191, 175. We have huge amounts of wildlife. We don't need more trees. We don't need more bushes. We have more deer. I am so happy that 175 LLC or whatever it is called are building the 2 houses. I'm thrilled with it. All we ask is that we let the water flow from 12.5 to 14-inch pipes all the way down to the 30-inch pipe that's on Stonewall. And anybody that's commenting on anything south of 175, I would really like them to tell me what they're doing. But this is a real issue. We have, the Millards. Jim Millard is a good friend and a neighbor. His driveway, 2 to 3 times a year, has 2 feet of water over it. How is that not a health hazard? We have got a golf course right next to us. When we have 3 or 4 feet of water on the Lincoln's property and the north side of my property, where is all of that fertilizer going? It should be free flowing. And as long as we go from my property through the driveway, please don't replace the driveway. Just let it stay there. Let it flow. But 5 or 10 years ago, when there was a 12 or 8-inch pipe underneath the Sykes' driveway, their yard flooded. Since we replaced their pipe, they have never flooded. And it was great that they showed the pictures of what's happening at 175. And I love the comments that were in the reports about 175. It has not flooded in the last 4 years since the farmer's ditch was put in. What they've actually done is put a dam 75 feet from 191 to their property to block all of the water going from our yard. So we've got 12, 13 inches of pipe going into 175, hitting a dam where their grass is. And Matt, I'd love you to come over because I've never seen any water on the south side of 175. Never, ever. It is a complete lawn because there's a pipe there, but you've never been there. So I've been there for 28 years. So I thank the EPC for having us here tonight. I would ask you to just figure out, how do you get 14 inches of water that's coming from 500 feet through a 14-inch pipe that's hitting a stone wall as soon as it hits 175. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spillane. Is there another member of the public that would like to speak?
It's Bob Lincoln, 205 Brookside Road. I'd just like to add some comments to Paul's commentary. The capstones in themselves are a huge problem. These are very heavy, very large capstones that have settled into the trench that was dug out to alleviate this restricted flow. And so, when you live on the property as we do, we go into that pipe. And when George Sykes used to own the property, he was perfectly happy for us to do it. We've been in there with shovels. Literally, the amount of silt that is being brought into that access point at 175 at the farmer's drain is tremendous. And there's nobody there to clean it up. And this point that some of the members have made, which I think are very, reasonable, is that no system is going to work if you don't have access to the system to clean it up and have it be robust enough to stay on top of this water flow. And the capstones are a major problem. So I think, to add to Paul, we had an open trench that was of a size so that it would meet the 12 or 14-inch pipe under the culvert on 175. It can be maintained. The water can flow. It would be visually appealing. I'm really not certain why there's any heartache about opening up the waterway so it flows into an existing pipe underneath 175 driveway and let the water go where it goes. Now, the pictures, I have to say, is a bit of a misrepresentation, because what you're showing is the ponding. What you're not showing is a lack of drainage. And we've lived here for 23 years watching these ponds, which do form, and we have no problem with that. But we watch them drain out incredibly fast when the 175 conduit from Mr. Splain's property to the culvert is free and clear, the water flows. And this issue of safety, I don't think is pronounced enough. If these storms are getting so severe, this water, you said I had a natural barrier on my driveway. Well, the water crested my driveway. I've never seen that before, ever. So in other words, I had a solid wall of water north of me, over my driveway, into my property, over Mr. Millard's property. And the truth is, if it gets any worse, you're not getting emergency vehicles down these driveways. And during nor'easters, when things can go wrong in somebody's property, that's a major hazard. And it's caused by, I have to say, a lot of people who are experts here are observing, although I've observed that the flow is going nicely. That's not an engineered opinion, that's an observation. I can tell you as a homeowner, I've observed this movement of water stopping at the end of Mr. Splain's property and moving backwards and blowing up through my cleanouts in my yard. In other words, the water is moving from south to north. That's an observation I would love the experts on this call to take a look at, because it's empirical. The water is moving north, not south. So I, like Paul and Mr. Millard, we are very affected by this. We appreciate the commission. We appreciate their attention to this, but I think this is an important issue that requires careful study, and let's get it right while we have a chance to get it right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Is there another member of the public that would like to speak?
Sure, I'll throw my 2 cents in. Can you hear me, Eric?
Yes. Can you identify yourself, please, and your street?
Hi, it's Kathleen Millard. I'm the homeowner of 193 Brookside, and I just want to reiterate everything those gentlemen just said, because our storms have gotten worse and worse. And last time the storm came, I think it was like 2 feet high. And the problem is that, it's fine to see the water come and go. We're good with that. But it's not so good if you have an emergency vehicle that can't get to your house. And in the last 10 years, we've had a number of incidents where emergency vehicles had to get to our house. So I think it's something that we need to focus on. I think that, it's great to have new development, but we don't want to let this wait till the next homeowner has to deal with it. And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Mrs. Millard. Okay. Is there another member of the public that would like to speak? Again, going twice. Is there another member? Is there another member of the public that would like to speak? No? Okay. Then I guess it's getting late. It's 10. We've been on for the meeting's been open for 3 hours and a quarter, right?
Yep.
So, probably this is a logical break point, if you will, for us to adjourn. The public hearing will be kept open. There's a number of issues that are out there. I personally would like to thank the members of the public for because there's nothing like hearing from adjacent property owners. You guys live there, and I appreciate all your. And I've written down lots of comments that you've made, and I appreciate your questions and comments. So, Rick, with that, I'd like to keep the public hearing open, and because there's lots of pending stuff here to receive, and the commission members have made lots of questions and comments that the applicant has to consider, and so we'll just leave it at that for now. Is that okay? Okay. Rick's suggesting that we go around the table and take a quick vote. Just obviously informal to keep the public hearing open. I'm voting yes, keep it open. Oh, do we need a motion? Okay,
Yep,
Right.
I will motion, please, to keep this meeting open for further comment at the next regularly scheduled EPC meeting.
Peter, thank you very much. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Appreciate it, thank you. I guess, how do you want to do this? Voice vote or all in favor? Okay, here, I'll go around the table. I'm voting yes. Carolyn?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yes, Lauren Rossi,
Yes.
Peter McGinnis,
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman,
just a second, I'm taking a vote here. You're abstaining. You're recused from this. But Michael Irvin, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, Bill Wright?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna keep this open, Jim, and continue with that with the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is, what's next one? March 2? March 2? Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay, do we want to move on to the next item on the agenda? Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. Okay, the next item of business is the approval of minutes of January 5th, 2022 regular meeting. I believe Rick has sent that out to all commission members. And were there any further questions, comments, additions, edits? No? Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes of January 5, 2022. Peter?
I'd like to motion to accept and approve the minutes of January 5, 2022.
Okay. Carolyn, a second?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Without objection, so moved. Other business? I don't think we have any other business tonight. Okay, then let's move to adjourn. Peter, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Carolyn, a second?
Second.
Second. I don't have to. It's so moved without objection. Thank you very much, everybody, for a long night. And
welcome back, Mr. Chairman.